don't believe in ghosts. Now let me explain what I mean by that. I don't believe in those nonsense ghost videos on YouTube where it's three guys exploring an old sanatorium or a prison or an abandoned house, and they hear children laughing and something flies across the camera, and when they review the evidence later they see an orb. All that stuff seems like hooey to me. Foo and hooey, and I categorically reject it. It's fun, for sure, but it's not real. I'd like to believe in ghosts. I'd like to believe in life after death, a soul, a more eternal life. Now, note that I love ghost stories. I love the idea of motives, desires, and wants and needs that are so strong that they continue even past the barrier of death. Ghosts are a fantastic storytelling tool and an amazing element to include in stories. Actually, note to self, we should definitely do an episode about using ghost stories. But I have my own ghost story, my own set of seemingly supernatural experiences, and I know it happened because it happened to me. I think most people have a ghost story of their own. When the fire's low and the night is dark, they want to talk about their own supernatural experiences, their own moments that they felt like maybe, just maybe, there actually was a shape in the darkness, that maybe the normally hard and fast laws of reality became just that little bit malleable for just that moment. So, in the spirit of the season, I'm going to tell you my ghost story. I'm going to tell you that everything in this story is true. I'm describing it to you just as it happened to me. And I understand entirely if you don't believe me, or if you think it's fictionalized, or sensationalized, or retold, or stolen. But it's not. It's real in the sense that I'm describing things that really happened to me. This story is old. These events must be from nearly 2 decades ago. I wasn't with Jen at the time, obviously, and the years have for sure clouded some of these memories. So you're going to have to bear with me a little bit. The story starts with my former partner and I sharing a tiny postage stamp apartment. We moved in there under time pressure and we were looking to get out as soon as possible once I had stabilized into a decent paying job and coming out of my 20s. We moved in with a close friend couple who bought a pricey house in an up and coming neighborhood in our city. The thing is, the park at the heart of that neighborhood was haunted. And not just a little haunted. It's like a lot haunted. If I give you the name of the park, you can hit Google, and several of the top hits are ghost hunting reviews of the park. The park is a former graveyard for immigrants that died of a plague. The graves were unmarked with many, dozens of bodies to a grave. And, clearly never having watched any horror movies, they then moved the graveyard. They tried to dig up the bodies, but there just kept being more and more bones. This was in the 1800s, so keep that in mind as you judge. They just gave up on moving the bodies, and they just reburied the graveyard, including the headstones, and made it into a park. There's a memorial in the park now to those buried on the grounds, but apparently, every once in a while, one of the gravestones will emerge again, sticking up through the ground. Making it worse, the current park is about a third the size of the original graveyard, and nobody's totally sure where the original graveyard's outer limits were. It's generally accepted around town that several blocks around the park are haunted, whatever that means. Our friend's new house was about 2 blocks away from the park. I'd say about 80 yards away as the crow flies. And again, this was a part of town that was very much on the rise. It's definitely since gentrified. The houses there are crazy expensive, but that was only just getting started at the time. Talking to one of the partners in the couple, the house was way outside their price range. They toured it during an open house, mostly as a hee can you imagine kind of fantasy tour, but then one of the couple fell deeply in love with it, loving the older architecture, the wood accents. It was substantially more than they wanted to pay, which was part of why they were offering to have us move in. We would help cover the costs with our rent. And they were only looking for a pretty reasonable amount of rent. I had a pretty good job, so we could make rent and help our friends out. My partner at the time wanted to go back to school, so the lower rent sounded really good. and icing on the cake, we played D&D with them all the time, so we could get the whole dining room arranged as a D&D play space. We couldn't keep books down there. The dining room had to stay presentable, but we could have a big enough table to seat 8 and fully spread out a battle mat, and after a year in a too small, too hot apartment, that felt indulgent. We were in from the moment the idea came up. Just a little bit about the layout of the house, because that's going to become pretty important as I explain what went on there. You walk in through the front door to a small foyer. There's a very fancy mirrored seat there for putting on shoes and checking your look before you head out the door. The foyer opens into a set of tall stairs going upstairs. To your right, a doorway to the front room. Ahead of you, alongside the stairs, there's a hallway down towards the kitchen, with a door to the right to a dining room before you get there. Now, the front room and the dining room are actually one big room, divided by the back of a couch. So you can duck into the front room, walk along through the dining room, and step back out into the hall. There, at the end of the hall from the foyer, there's an arch that continues forward, deeper into the house, into the kitchen. But there's also a sort of side nook that has the basement door. The stairs down to the basement run directly under the stairs up to a second floor. We'll get back to the basement in a moment. The kitchen is open concept, with an island that separates the kitchen from the back room. The back room has a comfy couch bed for guests, and a few comfortable chairs to gather around in as a sitting area. The kitchen is quite nice, with cupboards all around, and a big sunken double sink. Down into the basement, it's creepy. There's no better summary for it. Even the door at the top of the stairs seems creepy. The stairs down have no handrail and are bare wood. There's a toilet down there that we all call the throne. It, is sitting out on its own. It's out in the open. There's no walls around it or anything. It's on this little raised platform. It's definitely super weird. The walls are rough stone, giving the impression of having been dug into the earth, which obviously it was, but you know what I mean. Now upstairs, so the stairs go up to a small landing and then bend to your right and about 4 steps more. You come out in the middle of a hallway. To your right is the small bedroom, about 8 foot by 6 foot in size. Almost directly across from the stairs is the bathroom with a nice big clawfoot tub that's away from the walls of the room. There's a large mirror that covers one of those walls just above the sink. Beside the bathroom is the study, and the hallway ends in the door to the master bedroom. The master bedroom is huge. I want to say 14 by 12 foot. It's like a massive, massive room. Now, the whole building is old, 1800s old. There are no built-in closets or built-in shelving anywhere in the place. The other couple obviously takes the big bedroom. We take the small bedroom, which is a little bit cramped, but there's lots of other spaces in the house that we can hang out in. At first, when we move in, there's nothing. We played a lot of D&D with a lot of friends in that house. We would have sessions that would start at noon on Saturday, and they wouldn't stop until 9 p.m. on Sunday night. We would fill the house with our laughs and our cheers. We'd roll a lot of dice. We'd have a lot of fun. This was back 3.5 was in full effect. So every month there's 1 or 2 new books. There's a new class you want to try out. There's a new feat you want to take. It's fantastic times. But some nights, when everybody's gone home, if you get sent down to the kitchen for water, there's sort of a creepy feeling. It's the oddest feeling. It's like you've just walked in on something. Like you've interrupted something. Like maybe you were somewhere that you didn't quite belong. But it's an old house. The stairs creak. The lighting is a little weird. And I don't get sent down to get water all that often. But about a month or so in, our friend Lord asks us, if we come down in the night, can we make sure to close the cupboard and put the glass we use in the sink? He's always finding glasses of water, half full, sitting out on the counter in the morning. We can't say it's not us, because who knows, but we don't go down and get water from the kitchen. Like we do, but not every night. We don't leave water glasses down there, we bring them upstairs. But who knows? Could be. We agree to make an effort to do that, but he notes that it keeps happening. We note it's happening. We find glasses in open cupboards if we're up early. We start to be able to pretty confidently say that it's not us. But then it just sort of stops happening. Okay. Our cat at the time, a giant, fat, handsome beast, starts avoiding the kitchen. Not horror movie style, hissing and all that stuff. He just chooses not to go back there. He just sticks to the front of the house and to the upstairs, which is where the people are most of the time, and he's a very people-oriented cat. The downstairs starts to get cold at night. Cold to the point where our landlord started looking for heat leaks. He doesn't find any, but old houses often have bad circulation. We all sort of collectively shrug it off. Another thing I'm going to mention, although I don't know how related it is to the house, one of the partners from the other couple had a sudden onset of a serious vision problem. They'd never had it before. They woke up one morning and were unable to see. There were trips to the hospital, testing, diagnosis, etc. It all cleared up. I wasn't privileged to the details, which is fair, but it definitely added to the stress in the house. After not too long, the landlord couple splits. Mostly, partly, amicably-ish. The member of the couple who had been in love with the house, the one who'd had the vision problems, is the one who's moving out, as they definitely cannot afford the mortgage. The rooms get rearranged. My partner and I move into the master bedroom. Our landlord friend moves into the former study, and another friend moves into the little bedroom. My partner and the new friend are both going to be going to school together in the fall. We're all D&D players. We often continue the weekend games. Life is pretty good. But the downstairs continues to drift towards downright creepy at night. When I have to come down for water, I start to intentionally make just a little too much noise as I come down the stairs and go into the kitchen. It feels like I'm going to walk in on someone. It feels like there's something going on in the kitchen, and like I'm going to be an intruder to that. And when you're standing in the kitchen at night, there's a feeling like there's somebody waiting, watching from the front room, waiting for you to leave. I remember one night in particular, I felt my heart start to speed up, and I felt really tense as I was coming into the kitchen. I felt like when I came around the kitchen door, there was going to be someone in the kitchen. I remember I pushed to the left to put it like distance between me and whoever was going to be in there, but then I come around the corner and there's nobody there. Sometimes in the morning, we'd find the fridge door or the cupboard door, one specific one, open. I mentioned this to our engineer landlord friend. He measures. The cupboards are flat, so he's not sure how they drift open. He adds a magnet, I think, to the cupboard to keep it closed, but it seems to keep happening. Every once in a while, there's a glass on the counter in the morning. My partner and our new roommate are both students at this point, so they both get time at home alone in the house. Both keep leaving all the lights on when they're home alone, even during the day. Both play music a lot, and both avoid going downstairs. The upstairs just feels more comfortable when you're there alone. Sometimes at night, we hear someone coming up the stairs, which, no surprise. There's 4 people in the house by this point. It's not infrequent that we all have guests over, but sometimes we hear it 2 or 3 times, one right after the other, and there's nobody going down in between. A couple of times, our roommate in the little bedroom asked us if we were up and down in the night, because she heard us in the hall and in the bathroom a couple times. We hadn't been. Whoever she heard, it wasn't us. That roommate in the little bedroom mentions that sometimes, in the afternoons or evenings, she's felt like someone was testing the knob or latch on her room door. She asked if it was me or my partner. We're all comfortable enough with each other that this possibility isn't particularly weird, but it does get pretty weird when we can confirm it wasn't us. In the bathroom, there's a gloriously large mirror behind the sink along the wall. It's about 6 foot long and from the bathroom counter to the ceiling. I don't like looking at it. I always get the impression that I'm going to see someone behind me. But I'm a scaredy cat and I watch too many horror movies. I don't know if anyone else ever had that experience in the house, but I don't get that sense from other mirrors. At least, not in the same way. At one point, while we're in the bathroom, my partner's showering and we're talking, and she starts slurring her words, and she just starts looking very tired. Like her eyes just keep fluttering and she can barely keep them open. I mean, it's a hot bath, it's bedtime, that's not too surprising. But I still say maybe it's time to get her to the tub. She stands up as I get the towel, and then she stops talking. I look over and she's standing in the claw tub, cross-eyed, mouth slightly agape. I rush over and I half catch her and half ease her back into an empty tub. I was pretty freaked out by that. She dismissed it as the result of overheating in the tub. And yeah, maybe, could be, certainly could be. A few times, both my partner and our roommate get the impression that someone is waiting for them outside the bathroom. They call out that they'll just be a minute, figuring it's me, and are weirded out to learn that I was in the bedroom or downstairs. Note that we're still having people over for big D&D sessions in the large room downstairs right now. When the house is full of 5, 7, 10, 20 people, it doesn't feel very creepy. But the basement always feels quite cold. It feels very hostile. You can't help but feel unwelcome down there. I probably went into the basement 5 times or less in the 18 plus months that I lived there. Our landlord says he just uses it for storage and tries not to think about it. We all note we're keeping the door stop on the basement door in place at all times to keep it closed. When it's open, and sometimes it is found open, it looks like a big yawning black pit. It's unnerving. Eventually, our landlord friend gets a job in a nearby city. He keeps the house and the room and visits often on weekends. The other roommate moves on. She gets out of school. Now it's just us in the house most of the time. We can now semi-regularly hear someone walking down the hall to our room at night. But the door doesn't open. The footsteps are distinct. Our cat reacts to them, not like horror movie style hissing or anything, but more like a, "Oh hey, who's that?" He raises his head, he looks towards the door, but then nothing happens. The cat stops leaving our room to prowl the house at night. The downstairs becomes inhospitable. I distinctly feel unwelcome there. I feel like I'm an intruder. My partner starts simply refusing to be down there alone after dark, unless we're in a group gathered around the D&D table. We have the TV on in our bedroom almost constantly, just to make noise. The basement, previously creepy, has become foreboding. One of our good friends is a rough and ready, fight and fornicate style punk rocker. On a dare, we send him into the basement to use the strange throne that's down there. He goes down, but he comes up and heads straight to the upstairs bathroom, saying that he felt all exposed down in the basement. One night, my partner and I are watching TV in our bedroom, and I head downstairs to get the snacks. We'd just gone grocery shopping, and some of the bags or stuff are still in the kitchen. All the fridge stuff is away. This is like bags of chip for D&D, cases of pop, that sort of stuff. I round the stairs, turn down the hall, which looks into the kitchen, remember, and I would swear I see one of the bags rustle, as if someone's just rooted through it or dropped something in it. I froze, and I stood there for about 20 seconds or so, and then I noped back upstairs. My partner asked me where the snacks were, and I'd made like I'd forgotten them, and would go back down for them in a bit. My partner starts feeling faint regularly. At one point, as she's getting ready to leave, standing in front of the mirror in the foyer, and I'm standing on the stairs, she pauses mid-sentence. Her eyes cross and she falls to the floor, straight down, like a marionette whose strings were cut. Our landlord is now living in the nearby city most of the time. He comes by most weekends. We mention all this to him. He's an engineer. He's a very reasonable thinker with a scientifically oriented mind. I'm not going to say sensible because he's still pretty fanciful, but definitely not prone to an overactive imagination of the type that makes up ghost encounters. To our surprise, he actually tends to agree that the place is haunted. He says he's had incidents too. The doorknob to his study has turned when he was home alone. He avoids the basement, especially after dark. Eventually, in the fullness of time and for reasons unrelated to the story at hand, the decision is made for us to move on. The landlord comes down less often. His work is keeping him busier. We need some more space that's ours. We want to move in with another set of friends. We mutually set a date. The landlord sets up to sell the house. But there's one major incident left to come before we move out. It's August, and it's hot. The air conditioning in the house was never great, and I forget why, but I don't think it was working at all at this point. We're a few weeks from moving away, so some stuff is already boxed. My partner has chased me out of bed, and with no other easy choice, I'm downstairs, in the back room off the kitchen, on the pull-out couch. The night is hot, I'm hot, it's unpleasant and uneasy, and it's late. I'm lying in bed, but I'm not asleep yet. I was reading, if I remember correctly, whatever the latest 3.5 book was. I hear my partner calling me from upstairs, but it sounds strained. But honestly, I'm hot, and it's late, and I'm tired, and I bet I'm about to be asked to bring a nighttime water. I pad through the kitchen, I start down the hall, I hear her call again. It's a little more urgent. Now, as I mentioned earlier, one wall of the hall is the banister of the stairs to upstairs. The hall runs from the foyer to the kitchen. I come out of the kitchen, and I'm just about to start down the hall, about to call up to my partner to find out what she needs, so I look upward along the banister. And there's someone standing there. It's not a person. It's more like a person-shaped shadow. It's a patch of darkness, but it's in a person's shape. It has a head, shoulders, a torso, and arms. As I look up, it's bending down and around the banister, craning its neck to see me. It's like a person standing on the stairs, but it's not a person. I see it bend its neck to look at me, and I see its hand tighten on the banister for balance, just like I would do if I was standing at the top of the stairs, trying to arc my neck to see down into the kitchen. And I remember thinking in that moment, what the hell is that? And being very, very afraid. And then, it's gone. There's no intermediary step that I remember. It doesn't shift, contort, or fade. It just sort of becomes translucent and then is gone. It was distinct and then it wasn't. Here's where it gets weirder to me. I've heard my partner calling me, sounding strained. I've seen this definitely strange seeming figure on the stairs. I've had my heart in my throat, so scared in that moment. And suddenly, I'm just tired. Like, my arms and my legs are just lead weights, just completely wiped. I turn and I stumble back to the pull-out couch, desperately wanting to just get some sleep, and I collapse on the couch, and then my head springs right back up. What the hell was that? And is my partner safe? I clamber through the kitchen, watch the stairs as I run down the hall, and then head up the stairs two at a time. Once upstairs, I call for my partner and come skidding down the hall towards our bedroom. The door is already open, and she's sitting up in bed, eyes wide, looking totally freaked. "Were you calling me?" I asked. "Weren't you calling me?" she says. I wasn't. There was something standing on the stairs. "Did you see it?" I asked. She thought she saw something. Not a person, more like an impression, heading down the hall just moments before I got there. I know I saw something on the stairs, but I can understand if you don't believe me. I'm not sure I'd believe another person either. And then, 2 weeks later, as scheduled, we move out. Fond memories, fond farewells. And that's it. I mean, there's no resolution, there's no climax to this story. There's no Ouija board or seance, we didn't hold a banishing. That's the downside to stories from real life. They're often unsatisfactory, and they leave you with as many questions as there are answers. The story does have a postscript, though. We're living in an apartment across the city. We have a new baby. It's my turn to wake up with the baby that morning, and it's bottle time. So I turn on the TV so that I can hear adults talk, and I plug the baby into a bottle, and Creepy Canada is on. Hey, good. And hey, the episode happens to be talking about students from our local university. Oh hey, the whole episode is set in our city. That's kind of cool. This student is talking about their house. The house is near that park. They describe their cupboards opening, footsteps on the stairs. Wait a second. It says the biggest event for this student was she was standing in her foyer and she felt like someone was watching her from the stairs. She turned and saw two people in turn-of-the-century clothes standing on the landing. Creepy Canada, if you haven't seen it, does recreations on its show. And what landing is it that they happen to show? And what other foyer could it possibly be but the one that we used to live in? So that's my ghost story. If you doubt, I don't blame you. Honestly, if you believe, I'd second guess you. There's no evidence, it's just my say-so, and my story shouldn't convince anyone. And that's what I mean when I say I don't believe in ghosts. I don't have proof. I can't hold up a ghost and look at it and watch it and study it and prove what it is. I can't get others to see them and believe, and that's what it would take for me to say that I truly believe. So I don't believe in ghosts. But I definitely know there are ghosts, because I've seen one. Happy Halloween.